All right, well, it is 6:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. We may have a few folks still joining us, but welcome to this evening's program, Music, It's a Total Brain Workout. We are joined this evening by our friends at North Kansas City Hospital, specifically Stephanie Ramirez. As I mentioned a moment ago, I did go ahead and put the link to tonight's survey in the chat. So we hope you'll take a moment at the end of the program to fill that out and let us know how we did. You can also share suggestions you have for future programs you'd like to see. But those surveys help us continue to get funding to offer programs like these. Um, I am also going to ask that folks stay muted during the program. If you have questions, you can type them in chat. We'll save time at the end to go through those with everybody, but that'll make sure that we have good audio quality and everybody can hear for this evening's program. And then we will also have a recording of tonight's program, and I will send the link out to that to folks at the end of the week once it is up and available on our YouTube channel. I did also want to go ahead and mention a couple of upcoming programs that we will have. So I'm going to share my screen here. And the first program I wanted to mention is actually tomorrow at 6:30. It is our container herb gardening program. We're going to be joined by Mark Lyons, who is a garden coach, who will be talking about how you can grow herbs as well as use them in cooking, even just using a small scale like a container to do that. That one will be on Zoom. On April 2nd, we're going to be joined by film historian Annette Bohanec, and she will be talking about classic Hollywood stars and their on and off screen fashion choices and how they influenced moviegoers and started new trends and revolutionary innovations in fashion and makeup. That one is at 7 on Zoom. On April 4th, we're going to be joined by historian Annette Isaacs, who's going to be talking about the Berlin airlift, one of the greatest relief operations in military history. She'll tell the story of how American General Lucius Clay created a bridge across the sky after Soviet troops closed all access routes to West Berlin. That one is on Zoom at 7 as well. And then on April 9th at 7 p.m., Vanessa Young will be back with us, and she'll be showing us how to make side dishes that use the fresh flavors of spring by incorporating seasonal vegetables, herbs, and other ingredients. And so she always has great recipes and ideas. So looking forward to that. And then finally, on April 23rd, Stephanie is going to be back with us doing a program, Alzheimer's 101. And she'll be looking at a study that found that Alzheimer's is the #1 fear of retirees, and talk about warning signs, how to get a diagnosis, and benefits of an early diagnosis. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and let her get started with this evening's program.
All right, let me get mine up. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I have done this presentation before, but this is the first time I'm doing it over Zoom. So we will kind of roll with it and see how it goes. But I'm very excited to talk about two really important areas in my life. So just a little bit about me. I am the lead speech language pathologist at North Kansas City Hospital. So we have a team of 14 inpatient, outpatient speech pathologists. And I have been in the field since graduating from the University of Oregon in 2011. Um, and I'm also a musician. So my mom got me started learning the piano when I was about 8 years old. And I picked up the clarinet, decided in middle school that I really wanted to be in jazz band. So I picked up my dad's old trombone and learned that. And it wound up giving me so many amazing opportunities. I was able to go we lived in California, and I was able to go to the all Northern, all state honor bands. And then I was also part of the National Honor Band and got to tour around Europe while I was in high school. So music has definitely been a really, really important part of my life. And you might be asking yourself, what does music have to do with speech therapy? And I like to use the quote from Buddy the Elf that music and singing is just like talking, except it's longer and louder, and you move your voice up and down. But really, we do utilize music in therapy. I think it can be a great tool and enhance what we're doing. And as the title of this presentation suggests, music can be a total brain workout. So hopefully today you will leave with some great ideas for how to incorporate music into your life and kind of understanding how we use music to help our patients. So we're going to start today by learning the science of speech pathology. We're going to learn about the different parts of the brain because I think to highlight the way music exercises each part, it's important to know how our brain works. We're going to also, like I said, learn about how music can be used in therapy to improve patient outcome. So what is a speech language pathologist? I like to tell my patients that our job is to exercise, diagnose, treat everything from the neck up. And we really do that across the entire lifespan. So my youngest patient is 3 days old, a little baby in the NICU, and we are working on feeding and swallowing. And my oldest patient was over 100, and my very first job in a nursing home. And we had an amazing time working on memory and cognition. So it's really an amazing field, and I feel very fortunate to have been introduced at an early age. My grandmother was a preschool teacher, so I got to know the speech pathologist that worked with her. But really, as this picture suggests, our scope of practice is very wide. So we do everything from cognitive communication to social communication. We work on expressive and receptive language, so understanding what's being said and, thinking of the words that you want to say. We work on voice and resonance. As I said, we work on feeding and swallowing. We work on auditory rehabilitation. For patients that can't communicate verbally, we work on augmentative and alternative communication. Um, Most people know us by our role in the schools, working on speech and articulation, and fluency or stuttering is also a scope of practice. So I always say every day is an adventure, and we, get to help a lot of people. So as a speech pathologist, it's really important to understand neuroanatomy and neuropsychology, basically the parts of your brain and how they work, because we work with patients with both acute and chronic neurological conditions. So acute meaning things that have happened suddenly, like stroke or concussion, or chronic, such as things like Parkinson's disease or dementia, things that happen gradually over time. We also have to understand neurodevelopment, how the brain develops as we age, and then the concept of neuroplasticity, which is really important when we're thinking about exercising our brain. So I like to tell patients that our brain is like a highway, and it's got 4 lanes of traffic zipping along in either direction. You have something happen, such as a stroke or a concussion, or maybe even dementia setting in, and suddenly 2 of those lanes are now under construction. So the same information is there, it's just going to be moving a lot slower. So as therapists, it's our job to help our patients build new roads, build new pathways to help the brain work as best it can. And so that's where neuroplasticity comes in. It means that the brain can help build neural pathways no matter what our age. So the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that's totally false. Our brains are constantly learning and growing and changing. And so we really use that to our advantage in therapy. And we see that music really affects us, not only emotionally, but physically as well. So you can see the pictures down at the bottom, the brain at rest, and then the brain as it's listening to music. So you can see almost every part of that brain is lighting up, is responding to that sound. And we know that learning to play music actually shapes the brain structure and function, particularly in younger people, but older people as well. The way people process music and how their brain hears the sounds and responds to it tells us a lot about how their brain learns and can be a marker for things like dyslexia. We know music can improve language and cognitive function across the lifespan. And so today, what we're going to talk about are ways that we use music to do just that. So a little anatomy lesson to start. I have the parts of the human brain. The brain is composed of 2 hemispheres, a right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. And then we have 4 lobes of the brain. We have the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe. We also have the cerebellum and the spinal cord that connects the brain to the rest of our body. Inside the brain, we have subcortical structures, which we're also going to kind of dive into today. But each part of the brain is responsible for a different function. And so we're going to jump in and see how that works. So the red piece there, the frontal lobe, is basically the CEO of the brain. It's the boss. So we use this brain, part of the brain rather, to control things like problem solving, memory. We use this for decision making. We use this for emotion regulation. So when we are listening to music, it actually can help this part of the brain work better and help make us better communicators. So I work a lot with patients who have concussions. A concussion is a force to the head that either turns the head or hits the head so that the brain rotates inside the skull, causing some sort of damage and disturbance in brain function. A lot of these patients complain of things like difficulty controlling their emotions, headaches, difficulty with attention and problem solving and memory. One of the main things that we talk about as far as our brain goes is the impact of stress as well on brain function. And so music can be a really useful tool with this population in particular to help decrease some of those post-concussion symptoms and to help reduce stress. Stress kind of puts our brain in this fight or flight response. And when your brain is in fight or flight, you're not going to be able to do anything higher level, like remembering to take the chicken out of the oven. because your brain is just going to be focused on survival. So to bring all that stress down, sometimes we will use calm and relaxing music. And so I will just kind of play a little bit and do some deep diaphragmatic breathing. So I want everybody to practice with me. We're going to bring the stress of the day down, and we're going to relax with some music. So breathing in and out. And really pay attention to how the music makes your body feel.
We are not actually hearing the music.
Oh, okay.
Might have to look
See.
at what speakers it's using.
Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Optimize. Okay. Let's see if this works at all. If not, we could use our imagination.
Perfect.
Great. So just thinking about how music can really change our mood, moving us from what we would consider a fight or flight response and making our brain calm so that we can focus and bring that stress level down so that frontal lobe will work better. Okay. The next area of the brain that I want to talk about are the temporal lobes. So that's the purple area there. The temporal lobes are involved with language, both receptive and expressive. So when we're listening to music, the words, the language are actually interpreted on the left side of the brain, and the sounds and the music are interpreted on the right side of the brain. So again, this is crossing both hemispheres of the brain as we're listening to music. So when we think about patients who have had a stroke, and I see a lot of those in my office, there are actually two different kinds of strokes. So we have ischemic strokes where there's actually blood cut off in the brain, there's a clot. There's also hemorrhagic strokes where there is a brain bleed. And depending upon where the stroke happens, that part of the brain might have some damage. And sometimes if it happens on the left side of the brain, patients may have what we call aphasia, which means they have difficulty understanding or speaking. And we can use music to really unlock some of those word finding difficulties. There are songs that we know by heart that the words will come to us, you know, no matter what. And so even in these patients who have had a stroke and find it very difficult to communicate, a lot of times if you play a song that's familiar to them, they'll actually start singing along. And it can really help kind of open that door for better communication. So I'm going to play a little song, and I think everybody knows the words, and you can kind of sing along in your head. So as you all probably know, that was Jingle Bells. And again, I think that everyone probably could sing along and knew all the words. So sometimes music can really unlock those words for patients that are having difficulty. And like we talked about, being able to interpret the language, interpret the music, and the words is really a using both hemispheres of our brain and those temporal lobes. Okay, so moving on, we have the parietal lobes, which is the yellow area there. This area of the brain is kind of utilizing the perceptual use of music, such as learning and memory of sequences and pitch and rhythm. It's more of a sensory center in the brain, so it can control tactile feedback while playing an instrument or dancing. And that rhythm, a lot of times when we're thinking about speech and we're thinking about how our brain works, using rhythm and tactile feedback can be a really efficient way of learning something. We also find that patients who stutter or have difficulty with fluency really benefit from some of these pacing strategies and that tactile feedback. If you play a song, again, someone who stutters is much less likely to stutter as they're singing along with a group than when they're talking by themselves. When we're using music in therapy with this population, a lot of times we will use pacing boards like you see down in the corner. So we'll have the patient pointing to the different words and then using a metronome or kind of a drum beat to keep them fluent and moving the speech along. So something like this. I see the ball. So it can just help keep that speech moving along. And again, when we're thinking about learning and memory and the tactile sensations of music, this part of the brain is really lighting up with that. Okay, moving on to the occipital lobes, that's the blue area in the very back of the brain. This lobe is primarily involved with vision. And so a lot of times when we're reading music or when we're looking at our own dance moves or appreciating the dance moves of a beautiful ballerina on stage, the occipital lobe is what we're using. But it's really, really interesting because musicians can actually visualize music without even looking at a score. They might see the music in their mind's eye while playing the music. And there is actually a term for someone that sees music in colors. And I can't think of what that is, but it's a very interesting phenomenon. And you have so many musicians such as Ray Charles, Andrea Bocelli, who are totally blind, but are absolutely amazing musicians. And even though the vision portion of their abilities is not functioning, that part of their brain also lights up when they play music. So it really is amazing. Underneath the occipital lobe, down at the bottom of the brain, is what we have as the cerebellum. This area of the brain is really involved with coordination and balance. It also works with muscle memory. So musicians' abilities really become muscle memories over time. They can pick up their instrument and they don't even have to think about it. This area is also involved in the music or movement rather when dancing or playing an instrument. So that muscle memory that a dancer might have comes from this area of the brain. When we're working with patients who have Parkinson's, which is characterized by difficulty with balance, with muscle movement, a lot of times these patients have very soft speech or mumbled speech, and it's difficult for them to communicate. And so we tap into this concept of muscle memory by doing a program with them called LSVT Loud, or Lee Silverman Voice Training. And basically what we do is we train the brain, and we specifically this part of the brain, to think loud when they're speaking. And we practice that in our office over and over and over again until it becomes a muscle memory. And the patient is able to produce loud, clear voice in their daily conversation. A lot of the exercises we do with these patients are basic voice exercises that you might use with a professional singer, for example. So we work on breath support and holding out their voice with just a nice long ah. We also work on pitch glides and moving their voice up and down. So ah, ah, and really helping with that vocal flexibility. And again, we make this a muscle memory so that they can continue to use their loud voice in their daily communication. Diving deeper into the brain, we're going to talk a little bit about those subcortical structures that I mentioned earlier. So these subcortical structures are areas of the brain such as the amygdala, the hippocampus. These are areas that involve our body's regulation. It involves memory. It involves emotional regulation as well. You can see the cutout of the brain down at the bottom. When we have somebody that has advanced Alzheimer's, a lot of times we have brain volume loss. So the brain actually gets smaller within the skull. We have more gaps in the brain. But a lot of times these subcortical structures are more intact. So what we found is that music can really speak to someone, even if they have severe Alzheimer's or dementia. They can still respond to music and it can bring back memories to these patients. So these structures are involved with the emotional reaction to music. Again, responsible for music memory. Music has been potentially shown to increase neuron generation in this area. And music, because it is that body regulation area, it can cause our heart rate and blood pressure to reduce. So going back to the stress management concept, they actually have shown that playing patients music before and after surgery can decrease their need for pain medication. So it really is amazing what music can do. And I want to share with you next a clip of a patient with severe Alzheimer's who had an amazing response to music. So let me share this with you.
Ella había sido una de las seleccionadas por este proyecto, habíamos visto que su caso podía ser interesante e hicimos una búsqueda de las canciones que ella había bailado cuando era joven, ¿no? Y que ella había incluso sido protagonista de muchas de ellas. Por suerte teníamos escritos suyos antiguos donde ella relataba muchas de estas canciones. Al fin y al cabo, cuando el día que nosotros la pudimos conocer, pues la podíamos ver un poco triste, la podíamos ver un poco nerviosa en algunos momentos y la verdad que no sabíamos con qué eficacia iba a tener todo esto, ¿no? Pero al escuchar la canción del Lago de los Cisnes, que fue la primera que ella escuchó, la verdad que se transformó completamente y parece que parte de su mente y viajó a otro momento de su vida. La ciencia ya ha demostrado que efectivamente hay ciertas áreas relacionadas, áreas cerebrales relacionadas con la memoria musical de aquellas canciones que a cada persona le ha gustado, y estas áreas cerebrales están menos atrofiadas que otras partes del cerebro en ese tipo de enfermedades. Probablemente porque la música tiene un poder inmenso desde el principio de los tiempos, ¿no? Ya en la prehistoria se encontraban instrumentos musicales, con lo cual parece que nuestro cerebro está preparado para ser un cerebro musical. Por supuesto, la música está absolutamente unida a las emociones. Nosotros también decimos que
So I'm going to stop it there, but I really invite you guys to watch the rest of the video and see kind of the rest of that project where they gave the patients iPods rather, and allowed them to listen to music. It really is amazing and helps to bring back so many memories.
es importante la música en la enfermedad de Alzheimer.
Okay. Hold on just one. Sorry, I had my little 4-year-old come in to help me. And speaking of children, this is a great segue. Music can be amazing in utilizing and reaching people across the lifespan. So in children, we know that musical experiences in childhood can increase and accelerate brain development, particularly in the areas of language and reading. We know that learning to play an instrument can improve mathematical learning and even increase SAT scores. So if that's not a reason to, advocate for more music education in schools, I don't know what is. Children who learned an instrument show better fine motor control, auditory perception, pitch, and rhythm discrimination. And they also showed improvements in verbal abilities, including verbal recall and reading skills. As I mentioned earlier, music in childhood can help with reading. We also know that the way a pre-literate child, so one who has not yet learned to read, how they process sound, such as pitch, timing, timbre, can actually predict their future reading ability. And difficulty with that can actually be a marker for things such as dyslexia, like I mentioned earlier. Dancing to music helps children build fine motor and gross motor skills. It allows them to practice self-expression. And again, it helps to set a mood. Music and movement are social activities. They can help children feel involved and part of a group. So just very, very beneficial for that social emotional development. And so for this clip, I would like to share with you how one school, I believe this is in New York, incorporated music, and they were actually able to get students who were primarily nonverbal to start interacting and communicating with one another.
Want to see how that
visual impairment. But then in addition to that, the students also have a whole host of other disabilities. And some of our students, really, it's a challenge. I really was very limited in my knowledge about beatboxing. Things changed, I believe it was about 8 years ago now.
My first experience of coming to Lavelle was through an invitation to come and DJ the school dance. What I saw was just the kids' reaction to music. This isn't just kids listening to music and gaining some joy out of it. This is kids at a visceral, at a human level, like, this is ecstasy, this is complete joy, and it's completely unhinged. There's no self-consciousness. There's no, oh, am I dancing well or not? I mean, I'm just wanting to move. This is how I feel. And that's where I was like, wow, really saw how powerful music was. Why are we giving the kids 30 minutes worth of music to listen to? Let's teach them how to do it. And let's not only teach them how to do it, let's get the best beatboxers in the world to teach them how to do it.
Guys, make some noise for Beat Rockers right now.
Beat Rockers is a music and self-expression class that uses beatboxing.
I want to know, like, how is beat?
We didn't really understand why the art of beatboxing would have been such a great fit for this population of young people. But once we applied it, and once we started to teach the young people, that's when we were like, wow.
I can remember like the first week, and you could hear this booming through the halls and through the walls. The first class, you could tell that there was definitely something special there.
Yeah. Yeah, Carlos.
And it was the first time that those students of ours that are maybe nonverbal, really have a lot of different disabilities, were able to participate in a collaborative project.
And we want to definitely.
So I just love that because I think that clip shows that music can really speak to everyone and it can give everyone a voice. It can help people interact and it can really help bring kids together who might not otherwise be able to interact with their peers. Which socializing is a major pillar of brain health. We want both adults and children to interact with one another because that does so many good things for our brain. So music can definitely aid in that as well. Moving along in the lifespan, for adults, we know that older musicians have less age-related reductions in total brain volumes compared to non-musicians. So as we get older, our brain does tend to decrease in volume slightly, not to the extent of the Alzheimer's brain that I showed you just a moment ago, but people that played music retained more of their total brain volume. We know that listening to or making music can increase blood flow to the brain, that regions that generate and control emotions. So you saw in the video of the ballerina that it allowed her to kind of tap into those memories and really bring her out of her shell. A lot of times dementia and Alzheimer's are characterized by behaviors that some people might refer to as sundowning, where they get more agitated in the evenings. We know that listening to music can actually help decrease these negative behaviors and also decrease the need for different medications to help these patients through some of these emotions so they can regulate that a little bit more on their own. We know that listening to music can help brain cells process information more efficiently and may facilitate the brain's ability to adapt. So going back to that concept of neuroplasticity, music can help make that more efficient. And as I mentioned earlier, music can decrease pain. Not only does it distract us from the pain, but it increases the production of dopamine, which is a natural painkiller. The next thing I'm going to share with you is a trailer for a movie. If anyone has the time, I would highly recommend watching it. It's called Alive Inside, and it really talks about the impact of music, particularly on the dementia population. But let's take a look at the trailer for that.
What do you think of music?
My heart belongs to music. I love it.
Have you ever had music just hit you in a place that immediately brought you to tears? Music has that power.
Music connects people with who they have been, who they are, and their lives. Because what happens when you get old is all the things you're familiar with and your identity are all just being peeled away.
We're going to do your medicine now.
Our healthcare system imagines the human to be a very complicated machine. We have medicines that can adjust the dials. Blood pressure, oh, turn that down. Blood sugar, oh, turn that down. We haven't done anything to touch the heart and soul of the patient.
One resident that barely opened her eyes, she didn't respond. Knew her for 2 years. Once we put the iPod on her, she started shaking her feet. She started moving her head. It was amazing.
Music has more ability to activate more parts of the brain than any other stimulus.
Who am I? Huh? Who am I? I'm your daughter.
By exciting or awakening those pathways, we have a gateway to stimulate and reach somebody who otherwise is unreachable.
It can't get away from me if I'm in this place.
Takes me back to my school days. Oh God, that's beautiful.
Does it make you happy to sing for us?
Yeah, I'm crying.
Every human being needs stimulation from the outside, from little babies to old people.
American culture is wrong. There is actually life beyond adulthood. There's the opportunity to live and grow and become elders. The aging that we experience holds in it very important learnings and lessons.
There is no pill that does that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay, so there's tears of joy.
So I just love that. And I think that what I really appreciated from that was when they said every human deserves interaction and stimulation. A lot of times, you know, as people age, they become less involved, less stimulated with life, particularly if they have some kind of illness or disease such as dementia. And I think music can allow us to tap into those memories and give their brain that stimulation that it was really missing. You know, I tell my patients, just because you have dementia, it doesn't mean that you're any less intelligent than you were before. You still have the same life experiences, the same wisdom, the same knowledge. It's just that ability to access it. And so as we saw with the ballerina, as we saw with a lot of the people in this trailer, music can open up that door and really open up those pathways in the brain and allow people to really get that full brain experience.
I thought you were going to.
So as we've talked about, we use music in therapy with children to make things fun and interesting. We can foster language development by learning and practicing new words. We can build routines or socializing opportunities. So a lot of times when it's time to go, we'll sing the goodbye song. And even kids that have trouble transitioning, they know that it's time to pack up and go, and it really helps. We can build fluency for children who stutter and use those pacing techniques that we talked about earlier. And then for our adults, we can use music with our patients with dementia to help bring back memories and just improve their engagement in their treatment programs and in life. There is new research in something called vibroacoustic therapy for Parkinson's patients that may lead to decreased body stiffness and reduced tremors and longer strides. So lots of research and exciting stuff happening. We use music to help with memory processes, mental stimulation, and stress reduction, which is all very important in how our brain functions. So what can we do today to really utilize music as an exercise tool for our brain? Well, first and foremost, I think listening to music, and it doesn't matter what kind of music. I think listening to music every day is going to stimulate your brain and it's going to affect your mood. We do know that people with dementia respond better to music they grew up listening to. So if you have a friend or family member who has dementia, you might, think about what did they enjoy listening to, and you might find that the music can trigger more of an emotional response if it is familiar. Dancing and physical activity is good for our brains. So I always tell my patients, heart health equals brain health. So doing something that's good for your heart, like exercising, is going to be great for your brain. Learning a new dance can help with coordination. It can help with balance. It can help with listening and following directions. So you don't have to be, a world-class ballroom dancer. You just have to, move your body and maybe step out of your comfort zone and take a dance class that you've, been wanting to try. We always encourage learning and doing something different to stimulate our brain every day. So learning an instrument in particular improves hand-eye coordination, it improves rhythm and memory. So if you've always wanted to learn how to play the piano, they say the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The next best time is right now. So I think right now would be a great time. There's so many resources out there as well. YouTube, you can find so many things for free and just take advantage of that. Even just memorizing song lyrics can help with auditory processing. It can help with attention. It can be a good memory exercise. So trying to do something every day that's going to make your brain think. And if we want to, again, kind of get out of our comfort zone, we can certainly jumpstart our creativity by listening to music from other countries or cultures or genres from what we are familiar with. And that can really also kind of make us think. We have a lot of amazing opportunities in the community with different musical performances and bands, and we have the beautiful Kaufman Center downtown. So I would just encourage people to kind of look around and see what's out there, what you can expose yourself to that's going to be new and different. So to recap, music really does activate our entire brain. So we're working on language, we're working on creativity, we're working on happiness, we're working on stress management, we're decreasing pain. We know that music can improve our physical and our emotional health, and that it is important across the whole lifespan in stimulating and improving brain function. We use music in therapy to help improve patient outcomes, and when we want to exercise our brain, we want to try incorporating music into our daily life. And so I do also want to leave you with some different resources that you might find helpful. So North Kansas City Hospital has a lot of different options for different educational opportunities. We also have different books. This Is Your Brain on Music and Musicophilia. That movie that I discussed earlier, Alive Inside, would be a great watch if you're interested in that. And then if you want to learn more about speech therapy and our scope of practice, you can talk to the you can visit the website for the American Speech and Hearing Association. So give me just one moment. I have to check on my daughter real fast, and then I will be back to answer some questions. So you can enter those in the chat right now.
Yeah, go ahead and put questions in the chat. I put the link to the survey in there, and I'll also mention that somebody has posted the link for YouTube for the Alive Inside video, or sorry, Canopy, which you may need to have a subscription to. I'm not 100% sure on that. But the This Is Your Brain on Music is a book that we have in our collection. And I was going to look up the other one. The Musicophilia is also in our collection. Both of those you can put a hold on and check out. As far as questions go, we don't have a question here, but somebody said Tony Bennett remembers songs when music is played. There's a concert he did with Lady Gaga.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah, it is really amazing. I can share just a quick personal story. I obviously have, a professional connection to this, but I also have a personal connection as well. Both of my dad's parents actually passed away from Alzheimer's disease in 2019. And my grandfather had been diagnosed with the disease for quite some time. And he played the clarinet in the community band up until a month before he passed. His love of music is really what I think inspired our whole family to pick up musical instruments. But I do truly feel that his socializing in the band, playing his clarinet, being active and doing that is what helped him live so long with the disease and really thrive with Alzheimer's. So, Tony Bennett, excellent example. I think more people are coming out, and sharing their stories. There's less of a stigma, I think, around dementia, and hopefully more awareness. But I think that, just in my personal experience, it was such a testament to the power of music and how it could really help keep him active and keep his mind really engaged.
And then someone did also post a link to some upcoming music programs with the Kemper Art Museum.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Oh, and Canopy is a free app through the Kansas City Public Library or the Johnson County Public Library to stream movies. So if you have a Mid-Continent card, you should be eligible to get a reciprocal card with either of those libraries and then access Canopy if you want to see a live inside. All right, well, I don't see any other questions. We'll give it a minute here, see if anybody's typing. But in the meantime, thank you, Stephanie. It was a very interesting presentation. And thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I will email out the link to the survey if you weren't able to access it through chat. And I will also email out the link to the recording once it is available on YouTube. It usually takes a couple of days for us to get that up there. But thank you, everybody, for coming. And thank you again, Stephanie, and have a great evening.
Thanks.